Welcome, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to today's live stream on what is new in Onshape 1.196, which was released late on Friday afternoon before the weekend. So hopefully, this is still fresh for everybody. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at the Onshape forum posts, there is a ton of really, really good feedback on the latest update. Tons of different things. Some stuff that I'm even going to dive into from the release notes as well that didn't make it in as far as a full scale video or anything like that. But there'll be a whole bunch of little things I think that you're going to like, and some big things, like really big things too. So let's take a look at some of the forum comments. I love just kind of going through the forum comments here, and let me see if I can actually bring it up over on the other side. But this is one of the most popular improvements, the Sketch Constraint Manager that was released. We'll dive deep into that shortly. So thanks for noting that. So many people on the forum have mentioned that, right? Lots of goodies, actual gods, right? Love this constraint manager, the AI learning tool. We'll do some sample searches through the AI learning tool, give you some ideas on how to use that. AI advisor, that's what we call it. Section views, broken views, window box unselect, right? All sorts of different things. Constraint manager stuff, AI tools, right? Lots of different, great feedback, in the forums. So let's start with the constraints manager, because I think I like to start with like a big CAD thing. I think AI advisor, we're going to dive deep into that. Let's save that for the middle of the show. But let's start with the constraint manager, because it's really cool. There's a lot of deep things in the new Onshape constraint manager. So let's go ahead and try to figure out how to share my screen. Let's see. There we are. All right, so everybody can see my screen. I'll go full stage here, full screen for this. So, the thing that we're talking about right now is the constraints manager, right? So, one of the big CAD improvements, I think, for this 1.196 release, indeed, right? If anybody has any questions, comments, definitely, it's a live interactive show here, so please. Definitely ask questions. Let's start with the constraints manager. So let's go into my jackhammer that you see me use quite often here. And I have a, let me just show you the part that, we'll do some work with here. We have a, the little blessing block on the end of the jackhammer. And let's see, where is that? I think the best way to find that is to just go right, to the tab manager. And you see what I did there? I actually, just did a search for the part that I was looking for in this document. This document has a number of tabs. Wicked easy, right? Just to do a quick search in the tab manager to find the tab of the document that you're looking for. And I have, this blessing block that I have a sketch for, and I can see that I have some features that are not happy, right? I can see this blessing block right here, and I can edit that sketch. And let's just take a look at that from the side, maybe do a little section view, something that you don't often think of when you're doing your CAD work, the ability to turn on a section view while in your sketcher, so you can kind of see how things interact a little bit nicer and better right there. All right, so we got our section view, and I see I have some over-constrained relations, right? I can, we've always had the ability to turn on and off the errors, right? But a few releases ago, we added this button, right? This button right here was added for the profile inspector, which would help us find problems like with the sketch profile, like if there was an open gap or something like that, right? And in fact, in this sketch, there is a couple of loose ends here. It doesn't prevent the feature from working. It's just noting that to us. It was a reference point that's not really connected to anything else in the sketch, so that's why it identified it. But notice the new option underneath that button here for the constraint manager. All right, so this is I'm sure this will be something that people will like, where is it? Well, in your sketch, when you pop open any sketch, you get this box, you get that button, and there's the constraint manager. Okay, so pretty cool, right? So now I can see all of the relations in this sketch, right? And let me go full screen here. Just check my audio here. If I could just get a quick audio check. If anybody can hear me, just type in to the comment list because I see a couple people. Okay, yeah, we're getting audio. Okay, not sure what was going on there. I noticed that I'm watching this on LinkedIn on my phone while I'm giving the presentation on my computer, and it was giving me a couple of delays here. So hopefully the actual recording will be good. Let's hope, right? Let's add this back to the stage here. All right. So everybody should be able to see my screen, and hopefully everybody can hear me again. So perhaps there was some sort of glitch in the audio system here for my streaming here. Okay. So Constraint Manager, really, really happy with how that works. All right, another thing that I think I'm going to get into is something that I didn't have a chance to throw into the What's New forum post, but I think is actually a really, really nice thing. Let's find a document with a PDF in it. All right, I have a something with a setup sheet here. All right, yeah, it's just a PDF of a setup sheet. I'm just looking for a way to use this next new option here in our communications aspect of things. Adding comments. You can now add a comment to something that has a PDF in it, right? So I can be inside of this document. Of course, we've been able to add comments and markups to photos and things like that for quite some time, right? If you have a rendering and you want to do a markup of the rendering with the marketing department, have at it, right? It's great. But PDFs were not allowed, but they are now. So here I'll add a comment. We can hit the markup button. And what it will do is it's going to ask me to share a part of my screen. That's how it's going to do it. So I have my window that I'm on right here for the part feeding machine. So I'll share that with Onshape. And then I can start using my markup tools, right? So I can put a green pen, around the tool list here. And maybe, say make sure to use correct post, right? Let me make that text a little bigger. That's a little small, isn't it? Yeah, make sure to use the correct post. There we are. Hey, there might be certain portions that you want to hide as well from any sort of comment. If you're sharing this outside your company and there was company confidential stuff, right? You can redact portions of the screen. And I can say, please check before release or something like that, right? And of course, I can add somebody's name in here so it's assigned as a task, right? In assigning it as a task, if you've ever seen Onshape and release management demos before where you can go from Rev A to Rev B, you have a task that's related to a document, you can have the release be blocked if you have a task that is not complete, right? Which is a great way of making sure things get done properly. But there you are. There's the markup of the PDF right there inside of Onshape. I didn't have to leave Onshape. I didn't have to go to any kind of separate place, right, to get that information. That is going to be really helpful for all the other stuff that kind of goes along with your design, right? Not just the CAD commentary, but the things that kind of go along with it for the ride, right? Let's see. Another improvement that received a couple of questions was a new shortcut to collapse the feature tree or the assembly tree. Let's try to show that live here. I think the Jackhammer has a bunch of folders at the top level here. So let's go to my account first, because that's where you want to go to your preferences and go to the keyboard shortcuts. And I want to get a shortcut for collapse right now. I'm just going to do Control F on my keyboard, or Command F. I'm on a Mac. And I'm going to say collapse. Right. And that's just a web browser trick 101, right? Is to be able to just do a Control F and find what you want on a web page. And of course, that all works in Onshape, right? We're in a web browser. So, and I can see collapse all in list is unassigned. So I'm going to go here and say, Shift Q. I'm not going to use the symmetric constraint on my keyboard. It's not one I use often on my keyboard. I have it in my pop-up S key toolbar. So I'm not going to use it by keyboard shortcut. So I'm going to override it with Shift Q to collapse in a list. And I'm going to say expand in my search so I can find this in the list. There it is, unassigned, expand all into list. And I'm going to say Control Q, because I like using Control Q because it's like what you'd use to do a forced rebuild in my old CAD system that I used to use, but there's no need for a Control Q in Onshape. So now I can repurpose that right there. So now you can see I have all these folders here, and I can go to Shift Q and Command Q, right? I think I might just have to refresh my screen for that to get the latest. There we are. So Control Q is expand, Shift Q is collapse, but at full expand, right? It's going all the way down into the make connectors of your hardware inside of a replicate, right? So that's pretty fun, right? Being able to dive all the way in, using that, this quick keyboard shortcut. All right. is something that a lot of people were really excited about on the forums. So try to fit as much as you can on a piece of paper, right? You don't want to deal with multi-page drawings and all that. So I guess that's the why it's so popular. But there's another few drawing things as well. Might as well talk about it right here, right? Um, yeah, the audio is going in and out through LinkedIn. I'm sorry to hear that. Is the audio okay now? Audio okay? Okay. I'm seeing it. Yeah, it's back. Okay. Sorry about the audio, team. Hopefully the recording will not have this. All right. Next up, width datum on linear dimensions. And what does that mean? Like let's say you wanted to put in a datum target, or not a datum target, a datum that's relating to the width, of this. Typically, that's done when you have a dimension calling out the width like that. And then you can add to the extension line, a datum. And we've been able to do that, for a long time, right? But the issue with that is it doesn't kind of go like, it's just anywhere along the dimension or the extension line. Now you can just kind of hover right over the dimension itself. You see how it highlights it like that. And then you can, place it where you want. And I'll say, okay. And now it's moving along with it. So it keeps your dimension established. And it also shows a relationship between that dimension, right? This is something that I think a lot of us miss, me personally, until I was talking with Pete Yotis, who works a lot with the Onshape Drawings team, and we were chatting, and it kind of dawned on me, like, what's going on here? Like, we can actually see, and interrogate what's going on with our dimensions and tolerances. Like this line right here, this center line, when I click it, I can see that center line is related to those horizontal lines. You can see them highlighting. That's where they came from, and that's how it was created. And now it makes sense to me as a dimension or a drawing gets very complicated. This can help you understand the drawing beyond what you could on a printout, right? Same here, 34. And just for, well, I'll try that later. I'm thinking out loud here, but yeah, I'm thinking like, what happens if this was a viewer, right? Somebody who just wants to look, at the drawing. Could they understand that? I'm thinking yes, but I can test that later with a shared user. But really important to see that. It seems like a small thing, but it can come in very, very handy, and I love the way that looks. Other things with drawings are custom datum targets as well. Okay, so a custom datum I'm sorry to hear that. Really, let's see if I can look at my settings here. Hello, settings, testing 1, 2. Looks like everything's registering on my end, but sorry, the audio isn't working too well through our system today. All those center lines were able to be created automatically. And I'm sorry if the audio is not coming in for some people. The center lines are all editable, by the way. You can delete the pattern, and I can edit that pattern after the fact. Okay. So I can edit the pattern. Yeah, I can tell not to have connecting lines and just put in the center marks, right? So you can right click on that and edit that. Or I can just delete the pattern in general if I don't need it. All right, so that is pretty cool. Let's see, what else do we got? Speed, some speed improvements that I could see through the through here, right? So, there were some drawings and structure view are faster. Let's take a look. Let's go to structure view. We'll go to my consumer products folder here and grab my jackhammer. Or something that's released. That's what I'm looking for. There we are. So there, everything is in here. And if there are any drawings in here, the drawings should load faster. Actually, I know what I have that's released. I'm going to go to my company, turn off the structure view for a second here, go to my industrial machinery. All right, there's my part feeding machine. I can see that it has drawings. And there's the drawing of that. So, it seemed pretty quick to me. So, there is also some speed improvements in enterprise dashboards, including user activity audit trail and the active users tile of the activity overview dashboard. By the way, to get to the dashboards, this is an enterprise only thing. There's a new option in enterprise analytics for, if I go to the release audit report, this is really handy. Like, and I'm so happy it's here. Like, I can actually see the release notes now in any of these reports, right? So if I'm looking for a particular thing, I know I typed something in or somebody said, hey, I made a change to something. I don't remember the ECO it was under, but I remember I added some McMaster car part handles or something like that. You could search the release notes in here. And it's showing me all my release notes. It's like all indexed here. Maybe I want to show, something when it changed to 6 lugs and refresh that report. Right. And it's going to just filter my report to release notes of just that. So if you have like release notes of a certain type of condition happening over and over again, you want to find it, this activity report for the release audit is very, very helpful. And I can see this ECO 230, 231, 232. Actually, these are part numbers. The ECO is all the same, right? ECO 231C. We changed from 5 to 6 lugs, I believe, on this particular release candidate. I could go to the release candidate itself, right from that report. And there we are. All right. Let's go into a couple other things while I'm in kind of like enterprise mode. Now get out of enterprise mode here. I'm going to go to my enterprise settings. There's a new option in here for developer. And what this gives you is a handy place to manage all of your OAuth applications and to create a new auth application directly from your Onshape enterprise screen. So if you're an enterprise PDM enterprise admin, I used to be an enterprise PDM admin back in the day. Being able to access all this stuff from one place is fantastic because normally it wouldn't be so easy to get to, from any device. But here I can get to my OAuth applications now and see all of my API keys that have been generated, for my account. So that's pretty cool. Some new stuff in Cam Studio. Let's jump out into the Cam world here. So let's see. I have a document with workspace units of millimeters right now. Okay. So let's just, create a quick job so we can, drop something in here. I'll just take that blessing block. I'm not going to do a full machining or anything on this. I just want to show you the option of where to change your units via tool library now, right? So we have our part. We're going to have a job with that body. And we are going to select a machine to mill this on. I'll use a standard Haas machine here. And do a setup. I'll just take the default setup. All right. Create a tool. So I have a tool library with, now you can see this is already different. I have inch and metric tooling showing up in my library. Now you could always have tooling that could have any number, whether it's a 1-inch tool or a 25 millimeter tool. You could still have, that in your library, but it would all show up just under the workspace units. But now it'll actually, show it to you properly as a, in the units that you want to work with. So if I uncheck library here, let's say I want to create a new end mill, I can choose millimeter or inch now. I want a 1/2 inch end mill. All right, so that's definitely the way I prefer to see it. So cutting length 1 inch, overall length 3 inches, and it supports the arbor as well, right? I could have a millimeter arbor, inch arbor, same with a holder. Uncheck library, and you get those choices. Okay, so once you have all that in there, it will save it to the library. Of course, if I edit that tool, I can see all that's here. So milling sorted on that, so you can see it. All right, but that was the most important thing I think in the Cam Studio as far as an update goes. Render Studio has received a number of important updates as well. Let's go to a Render Studio tab inside my document. I don't know if I guess I haven't added anything to it here. Let's just do a subassembly, of this. Well, we'll do the whole thing. Why not? Won't take that long. New options for named views are essentially here, right? The selective named view property checkbox selection. That's a really cold name for such a warm thing that's been introduced. So let's jump into that once it loads this full Render Studio. I must have been on another document when I was working on my preview of this. Let's just let it load this up for the first time. While we're waiting for that, let's move on to something else, and we can come back to the Render Studio. Let's actually talk about the AI Advisor, right? So, AI Advisor. Let's just bring out the window here. How did I get to the AI Advisor? This is a place where you can learn how to use Onshape in the best way based on conversing with Onshape, right? That's what AI Advisor and how we've introduced it is, right? So, I want to, ask Onshape how would I do something, anything in Onshape, right? So, how would I start a photo render, right? And I'm just asking it in plain text question, right? Let's see what it does, right? I haven't asked it this question before. I'm curious. Let's see what it tells me. There it is. Start a photo render in Onshape. Follow these steps. Open a document, create a new element, create Render Studio. All right, it's right so far. Render Studio tab, insert part surface. Yeah, that's what we just did. Then you can, it's giving me some helpful information right here, just going above and beyond, right? Use a scene list. Customize your environment. When you're ready, click Render Scene button. So it gave me a quick tutorial just by asking a question. I mean, that was pretty cool, right? It's giving me footnotes as well, right? So, it will bring me right to the Learning Center course for this. So this is trained, using, all the modern tech stack techniques for doing AI. We're doing this on AWS, right? We've taught it to look at the Learning Center, our help documentation, videos in our library, everything through the what's new, right? There's so many different cool things that you can understand now just by asking a question. We've have all these resources out for the last 10 years. Now you can just ask questions of it. That's, Onshape. We've built the system in such a way where it was, fairly easy to build AI techniques and tools to reference this information. And this is just the start. Okay, so there's a lot of things that you can ask this. And by the way, if you like the answer, if it was a correct answer, 5 stars is good, right? We want good feedback on this, right? If you get something that's not correct to what you think is correct, you should put a lower number of stars or 1 star if it's something that's incorrect, right? This is AI; it could produce mistakes, right? So just check things, right? But if it does produce a mistake, give it 1 star. If you think it did above and beyond and it gave you a great answer, give it 5 stars, and this will help us make the system better. Okay, so keep that in mind. But there's lots of things you can ask this. I mean, you can say, how can I write an expression for different things in your parameters and when you're typing things in. So it's really a very in-depth, deep tool. I would encourage you to ask it lots of different things. And we'll have a lot more about this coming forward. All right, back to the Render Studio stuff. Named views are a thing here, right? If you want to, set a named position, right? You've already had that capability of doing that, but you'll notice some new options. So I'm going to call this the hero shot, right? And maybe I want to also selectively apply properties, to that name view, right? So, um, let's actually go to the background, put in abandoned hall as the lighting, and change my appearance of the environment. Let's see here. Background. There we are. We'll do a solid color. All right. And named views. Call it Hero 2. And these are the properties right there. All right. So now let's just go to something else. I'll apply the lighting and background to this just to change my orientation, right? If I go ahead and set a name view again, it's Hero 2. It will bring me right to that setup. Okay, so that's pretty nice, right? If you have everything set up, you want to have your, let me turn off that banner. If you want to have your, same setup over and over again, especially for same as but different designs, things that are configured. You're creating a whole bunch of shots for your marketing website or things like that. This is very helpful. And you can also import these from other studios as well, which is really quite amazing, right? If I were to create a version right here, V1, and then go to another document altogether, I'll just open up this. And if I wish I had a rendering already, but it won't take long to create one. A quick example. All right, let's bring that in. We'll close that out. I'm going to close out all the other tabs here. That assembly should load in quick. There we are. I mean, it looks beautiful just by default here, just with the default materials. Wow. We're going to say match scene properties. All right, that's a new option. I can go to other documents recently opened, go to my jackhammer V1, and it sees the render studio. And look what it will ask me. Do I want my name views to come in? I can replace the same exact name view with something else, but there's Hero 2. I can give it all these things right here. And cross my fingers. Oh, we changed the lighting, but not the background. So I must have, maybe I didn't set that. I'm not sure. I know I did on the other one, live demo. I need to learn a little bit more. But you can see it did, in fact, change my lighting. And I believe I did have the latest version set. So I'll keep playing with that. Probably missed something. Another quick one, too, like your render settings, when you hit the actual render scene button, all these settings right here remembered from session to session now, instead of you having to change that every time. So that's a nice thing there. All right. This is quite an update. I think we've almost did an hour here. There's a couple other small things, that we introduced, including importing material density from Creo and NX. So if you have your materials set with the density, obviously those will come in when you do a mass properties calculation. And Onshape, we've been able to support that, I believe, for other CAD formats like SolidWorks as well. So, better import export capabilities. Let me see. I'm going through the list here to make sure I didn't. I know there's a couple of things I haven't looked at, but maybe not important to cover. But I think that's really the most important stuff here that we went through. So I do want to thank everybody for joining me here today. I wish the audio was a little bit better behaved here. I'm not sure what happened. I'm going to have to investigate what was going on there. I'm broadcasting live on YouTube and LinkedIn at the same time. We'll see if that was in one place or the other. Use a platform here called StreamYard. It's wicked cool. But first time I experience an audio issue like that. So There'll be more to come, more videos, more content relating to all these great updates. Stay tuned to all the social channels for that. And I really am very, very happy with this update. I hope you are too. And thanks for joining me. All right. Have a great day, everybody.